Hello, hello. Today we're going to be installing a Kubernetes cluster into our GitLab project. The Kubernetes cluster in this instance is done for, was made at DigitalOcean, and we are doing this on gitlab.com, so we're on the most recent version. So let's go ahead and get started. I've already created the cluster at DigitalOcean and downloaded the config file for it. With that, I can use kubectl cluster-info to get information about it, such as where it's running, what the core DNS is, et cetera, et cetera. So the first step before we do anything is we're going to need to apply some settings. I've already made the file here, and this is essentially going to make a service account named GitLab in the default namespace, and then using the RBAC authorization API, we're going to make a cluster role binding, and it's going to be GitLab cluster admin for the service account GitLab under the default namespace, and the cluster role's name is going to be cluster admin. So we're going to go ahead and apply that via kubectl apply-f, and then our file name. We should get back that the service account and cluster role binding were created. Now after that, we need to go ahead and get some information here. So we're going to first need to get the URL that we're using for the API. To do this, we're going to run this command right here, and that'll give us this nice output. We're also going to go ahead and set the secret we're going to be using this command here. We'll also be getting the certificate that is being used, and we are going to go ahead and get the token being used. And just to be sure, since it will be needed information, we're going to see if RBAC is enabled. It is, but it's good to run this command and confirm that you see the RBAC API versions there. So if we go over to our GitLab project here, we can go ahead and go to Operations, Kubernetes. Then we're going to go to Add a Cluster. In this case, the cluster already exists, so we're going to say Add Existing Cluster. You can name it whatever you want. In this particular case, I'm going to go ahead and just call it DO-cates. And we're going to go ahead and use this API URL that we got up here. Copy the whole thing and paste it. For the certificate, we're going to do the same thing. We want the dashes where it says begin and end, the notes there. And then we're going to need our API token. Project namespace can be whatever you want. It'll default to GitLab managed apps, but just for sake of this test, let's go ahead and do GitLab test. We do have RBAC enabled, so we want that clicked, and we do want this to be a GitLab managed cluster. The form does have the ability to click a link to see more information, but generally speaking, you're going to want that enabled. So we'll go ahead and add the cluster. With that added, you'll notice there's not a lot you can do right now. That's because the first thing you need to do is install the Helm tiller. This is pretty much going to be vital. Well, no, it is vital because it'll install Ingress, Cert Manager, Prometheus, all your other apps that you're going to want to do. So we'll go ahead and click install. With that, Helm tiller is installed. This can take a little bit, so if yours takes longer than you see in the video, don't panic. Most of these take a little bit to install, so just be a little patient. If we go over here to our terminal, kubectl get services, we'll see nothing there. But if we do all namespaces, we'll go ahead and see that we have GitLab managed apps, and that's using the tiller deploy. If we do gitlab-ctl get namespaces, we can see that there's the GitLab managed apps, which will be used as a temp space to install a bunch of stuff, but then there's the one we specified, GitLab test. So now we can go over here and basically click any of these to install them. Generally speaking, if you're going to be deploying apps, you're going to want Ingress to, kind of handle actually displaying stuff. Cert Managers lets encrypt, so you can get, certificates and all that fun stuff. Prometheus to monitor the health of your, applications as well as the Kubernetes cluster. GitLab Runner to run CI/CD jobs for your project, and so on and so forth. All of these can take a little bit of time, so clicking them does take a bit of time. You just gotta kind of be patient. When you do Ingress, it'll give you the IP that's being used. Cert Manager is going to use whatever email you put there for the actual certificate generation, so make sure it's a valid email, and so on and so forth. With this, we can basically run CI/CD jobs. If I install GitLab Runner, I can deploy full application stacks because I have Ingress. Prometheus can help me monitor everything just to make sure everything's in a healthy state. But that really is all there is to it.